The man women can't stop thinking about is almost never the one who tried the hardest to get their attention. He's the one who seemed completely unbothered by whether he had it. And there's a 2,000-year-old philosophy that explains exactly why and exactly how to live it. What we're covering today are 10 specific Stoic behaviors, each one rooted in ancient philosophy and confirmed by modern attraction psychology, that create a quality of presence in a man that women find genuinely, deeply compelling. Behavior number 7 involves something Marcus Aurelius practiced daily that most men have never attempted once. And the climax, behavior number 10, contains the deepest truth about attraction that Stoic philosophy offers. It will reframe everything. The Stoics were not trying to be attractive. That is precisely why they were. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca. These men spent their lives pursuing virtue, self-mastery, and genuine character, not for external validation, not to impress anyone, but because they believed that the examined, disciplined life was the only life worth living. And in the process of becoming genuinely themselves, fully, completely, without performance, they embodied qualities that human beings have found magnetic for millennia. Today we break down exactly what those qualities are, and more importantly, how to actually live them rather than perform them. 10 behaviors, real philosophy, real psychology. Let's go. Bold claim. The single most attractive quality a man can possess is the ability to remain grounded when everything around him is uncertain. And the Stoics built their entire philosophy around developing exactly this. Epictetus opened his Enchiridion with what is arguably the most important sentence in Stoic philosophy. Some things are within our power, while others are not. Everything Stoic practice builds from this distinction. What you can control, your thoughts, your responses, your choices. What you cannot, outcomes, other people's behavior, circumstances. The man who has genuinely internalized this distinction moves through the world differently. He doesn't react to every provocation. He doesn't catastrophize uncertainty. He doesn't need circumstances to be favorable before he can function well. He simply responds deliberately from his values with the steady energy of someone who has made peace with what he cannot control. Women feel this quality immediately, not as aloofness, as groundedness, as the specific felt sense of being near someone whose internal weather is not determined by external conditions. Scenario: a man named David was on a third date when the restaurant lost his reservation, the backup plan fell through, and the evening was clearly derailed. Most men become visibly flustered, apologetic, anxious, working hard to manage the situation while visibly stressed about it. David looked at the woman across from him, a woman named Mia, and said, "Well, this is not what I planned. What do you actually want to do right now?" Calm, curious, completely unbothered. Mia told her friend the next day, something about how he handled it. "I felt completely safe, like whatever happened, he'd be fine, and somehow that made me feel fine too." That is Stoic emotional regulation expressed through behavior, not performed, lived. Bold claim: a man with genuine purpose is more attractive than a man with perfect looks, because purpose creates a gravitational field that approval-seeking destroys. The Stoics were unanimous on this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." Seneca wrote, "It is not that I'm brave, it's that I know what is important." Epictetus taught that the man who needs the approval of others has given others power over his internal state, and that this transfer of power is the beginning of all psychological suffering. The man who is genuinely pursuing something that matters to him, who has direction, who has something at the center of his daily life that is larger than any single relationship, carries an energy that is fundamentally different from the man who is living primarily for external validation. Mini story. A man named James had built a small architecture firm over 6 years. He worked long hours, not because he was compensating for something, but because the work genuinely mattered to him. He talked about it with the specific aliveness of someone who has found what they're supposed to be doing. A woman named Rachel had dated several successful men before James. She described the difference to her sister. The others talked about what they'd achieved. James talks about what he's building. There's a difference. One is looking backward, one is moving forward. It's the most attractive thing I've ever encountered in a person. Purpose creates forward momentum, and forward momentum, genuine, self-directed, not performed for anyone, is irresistible to people who are also trying to move somewhere real. Bold claim, in a world of constant noise, the man who chooses his words with stoic precision becomes the man whose words actually land. Marcus Aurelius practiced what modern researchers call linguistic economy, the discipline of saying only what needs to be said and saying it with the full weight of genuine meaning behind it. He wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Most men in social settings, particularly around women they're attracted to, fill silence with volume. They talk to manage anxiety. They say more than they mean. They offer opinions they haven't fully formed. And in doing so, they dilute everything, including the moments that deserve the full weight of their attention. The Stoic man speaks deliberately. When he compliments, it lands because it's specific and rare. When he expresses interest, it carries weight because it isn't offered constantly. When he goes quiet, the silence has presence rather than awkwardness. What most men do wrong, they talk to fill space. They mistake volume for engagement. What actually works? Let the silence exist. Speak when you have something genuine to say. Let your words be infrequent enough that they carry weight when they arrive. Bold claim, performed emotion repels high-value women. Genuine emotion, expressed with stoic groundedness, creates the deepest intimacy available. This is where most people misunderstand Stoicism. The Stoics were not emotionless. They did not advocate suppression. They advocated appropriate expression, feeling what you feel, but choosing how and when and whether to express it based on genuine values rather than social pressure or anxiety. Marcus Aurelius was deeply emotional in his meditations, vulnerable, honest, struggling. He simply processed that emotion with discipline rather than reactivity. The man who can feel deeply and express that feeling from a place of groundedness rather than need, who can say, "I find you genuinely fascinating" without needing a particular response to it, creates an intimacy that performed confidence or performed indifference never produces. Mini-story. A man named Thomas had been raised to believe that emotional expression was weakness. His relationships had all followed the same pattern, connection that felt shallow because he never let anyone actually see him. On a fourth date with a woman named Isabel, something shifted. She said something that genuinely moved him. Instead of deflecting, instead of the usual practiced composure, he said, "That actually means something to me. I don't say that easily." Isabel was quiet for a moment. Then, "That's the first time I've felt like I'm actually talking to you." Genuine emotion expressed from a grounded place creates intimacy. Performed strength creates distance. Bold claim, how a man responds to rejection reveals his character more completely than any success ever could, and high-value women are watching. The Stoic principle here is amor fati, love of fate. The acceptance of what is, including outcomes that are not what we wanted, not passive resignation, active acceptance. The willingness to look at reality clearly and respond to it from values rather than from wounded ego. When a man is rejected in any form and responds with grace, warmth, and complete absence of bitterness, he demonstrates something extraordinary, that his sense of self-worth is not dependent on her particular response. That demonstration is more attractive than the pursuit that preceded it. Scenario: a man named Marcus had asked a woman named Sophia to dinner. She declined, genuinely kind about it, but clear. Marcus said, "I appreciate you being direct about that. No hard feelings at all." And meant it. Genuinely. Sophia told a mutual friend 3 weeks later, "The way he handled that, I actually find myself wishing I'd said yes. Rejection handled with dignity often creates more attraction than the original pursuit, not because of strategy, because of what it reveals about character. Bold claim: a man who takes his own development seriously, physically, mentally, professionally, philosophically, communicates through his daily choices that he is someone worth investing in. The Stoics practiced ascesis, deliberate discipline and self-improvement, not for external validation, but as an expression of genuine self-respect. Epictetus wrote, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." Daily exercise, continued learning, genuine investment in skills and character. These are not attractive because they produce external results, though they do. They are attractive because they reveal a man who values his own becoming, who treats himself as something worth building. Women, particularly high-value women, are looking for a man whose trajectory is upward. Not necessarily a man who has arrived, but a man who is moving, consistently, genuinely, without needing to be watched doing it. Bold claim: Marcus Aurelius practiced a daily exercise that modern psychology has confirmed as one of the most effective tools for both well-being and genuine presence, and it makes a man dramatically more attractive without him doing anything externally different. The Stoic practice is premeditatio malorum, the deliberate contemplation of loss, not as pessimism, as gratitude activation. By regularly imagining the absence of what you value, your health, your relationships, your opportunities, you train yourself to actually experience the value of what you have while you have it. The practical result: genuine presence. The man who has contemplated loss is the man who actually shows up in his relationships, who isn't half thinking about the next thing, who looks at the person across from him and genuinely registers, this matters. This moment matters. She matters. That quality of genuine presence, the specific experience of being with someone who is actually there, is one of the rarest and most attractive things available in human connection. Most men are present in body and absent in mind. The Stoic man is present in both. Bold claim: a man without standards is not easygoing. He is invisible. And high-value women don't build relationships with invisible men. The Stoics were clear on this. Virtue, genuine good character, required standards. Not arbitrary rules, but deeply held values expressed through consistent behavior. The Stoic man knew what he would and wouldn't accept, not from rigidity, from genuine self-knowledge. When a woman encounters a man who holds standards, who is warm and kind, but will calmly, clearly not accept certain behavior, something specific happens in her nervous system. She relaxes into the relationship because standards communicate safety. They tell her that this man knows who he is, that she is not responsible for guiding him, that the relationship has structure. Mini story. A man named Nathan had been seeing a woman named Claire for 2 months. One evening, she was dismissive with him in a way that felt disrespectful. Most men either say nothing or overreact. Nathan said, warmly, without drama, "I want to understand what's going on with you tonight, but I'm not going to be spoken to that way. When you're ready to talk, I'm here." He didn't raise his voice, he didn't punish. He simply held a standard with complete, quiet conviction. Claire told her therapist, "Nobody has ever done that before. It was the most respected I've felt in a relationship. Standards held gently create safety. Safety creates genuine attraction." Bold claim. The man who talks about Stoicism constantly is missing the entire point. The man who lives it, quietly, consistently, without announcement, embodies the most attractive version of the philosophy. This is the meta behavior on this list, the one that contains all the others. Seneca wrote, "Convince by your life, not by your arguments, not by your explanations, by the actual evidence of how you live." The Stoic man doesn't tell people he practices emotional regulation. They feel it in how he responds to difficulty. He doesn't explain that he has standards. People encounter those standards in real interactions. He doesn't announce his purpose. He simply pursues it daily with the quiet consistency of someone who has made peace with the direction of his life. This behavior, living the philosophy rather than discussing it, creates a specific quality of mystery that is genuinely compelling. He is different from other men. She can feel it, but she can't fully locate why. The why is this: he has built himself from the inside out. And inside-out construction is rare enough to be unmistakable even when it's invisible. This is the truth reveal, the deepest Stoic behavior, the one that makes all the others possible and all the others meaningful. Bold claim: the most attractive man in any room is not the most successful, the most handsome, or the most confident seeming. He is the man who has most genuinely made peace with who he is. And that peace radiates outward in ways that no amount of external achievement can replicate. Here is what the Stoics understood that most modern self-improvement misses entirely. The goal was never to become impressive. The goal was to become whole, to know yourself, your genuine strengths, your real limitations, your values and where they came from, and to be genuinely, quietly at ease with the complete picture. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, a private journal never intended for publication, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He was writing to himself, not performing, processing, working toward the kind of internal peace that doesn't require the world's approval to sustain itself. That peace, genuinely arrived at, not performed, produces a specific quality in a man's presence that women describe in consistent terms across cultures and across centuries. He seemed comfortable in his own skin. There was something settled about him. I felt calm just being near him. I didn't feel like I had to manage him. All of these descriptions are pointing at the same thing: a man who has done the internal work, who has looked at himself honestly, at the failures and the wounds and the parts he wishes were different, and arrived at genuine acceptance, not resignation, peace. That peace is the foundation of everything else on this list. Without it, emotional regulation is performance. Without it, purpose is compensation. Without it, standards are rigidity. Without it, every other behavior is a costume worn over unresolved anxiety. With it, everything is genuine, and genuine is the only currency that creates lasting attraction. Mini story. A man named Richard was 53. He had been through a divorce, a business failure, and a health scare, all within 5 years. By the conventional metrics of success, his 40s had been a disaster. But something had happened during those years that he couldn't fully explain to people. He had, somewhere in the middle of the difficulty, stopped fighting himself, stopped arguing with what had happened, stopped pretending to be further along than he was. He had simply arrived at himself, at the actual, complete, imperfect, genuinely alive version of who he was. Women in his life described him in the same way, repeatedly, without knowing each other. He's the most comfortable person I've ever been around. Not the most successful, not the most impressive, the most comfortable, the most genuinely at ease with his own existence. That is the Stoic destination. Not achievement, not status, not the performance of confidence. Peace. Genuine, earned, quietly inhabited peace with the specific, particular, irreplaceable man you actually are. Everything else, the presence, the standards, the purpose, the emotional groundedness, these grow naturally from that foundation. They don't need to be manufactured. They don't need to be practiced as techniques. They simply emerge from a man who has done the real work and arrived somewhere genuine. That man doesn't chase. He doesn't need to. Here is the question I want to leave you with, and I want genuine reflection, not a quick answer. Of these 10 behaviors, which one are you furthest from? Not which sounds most interesting. Which one, if you're completely honest with yourself, represents the most significant gap between who you currently are and who you want to become? Because that gap is not a failure, it is a direction. The Stoics didn't believe in fixed character. They believed in continuous, deliberate daily practice toward virtue. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not evidence of inadequacy. It is the specific territory where your growth lives. Drop it in the comments, which behavior, and what you're going to do about it starting today. And if this video gave you something real, not just interesting, but actually real, subscribe. Every week we bring this level of depth to the intersection of Stoic philosophy, behavioral psychology, and what it genuinely means to become a man worth becoming. See you in the next one.